Can you let me know if I'm audible? Okay. So yesterday we were looking at some step-by-step process where we want to improve the accuracy of an ML model for a specific ML problem. Then we were discussing like what are the steps we need to follow and how we should approach the process of improving the accuracy of a machine learning model. So we started with first finding whether there is a scope for improvement or not. So to find whether there is a scope for improvement or we are at an expected levels of improvements or expected levels of accuracy, we can infer to that conclusion, or we can infer that by looking at the learning curves, or sometimes even ROC curves. By looking at ROC curves as well, you might get that whether you are at an acceptable level of performance, or we still need any improvement for some specific classification task. Then some of the reasons for that poor performance could be that we may not be using the training validation and training errors and validation errors, where we discussed about in sample and out sample errors as well. So we have to avoid leakage traps in snooping. And whenever you are using cross validation, you have to be extra careful that cross validation will not include out sample data into your training data. So once we verify that we do not suffer from any of that mixing of data in between validation and training side, we have to figure out what's the best way to optimize. So the best way to optimize can be always found out if you have a best error metric. So you need to find out a measure or a metric which indicates the overall performance or the improvement in an ML algorithm. This error metric should be a value which can be easily calculated and which has a good information in it, which can tell you whether improvement is improving or degrading, or it should be something where change should be visible. Like you are changing the algorithm, you are changing the data set, but still this metric is something which doesn't change its value much, then that's a poor metric. So you need to have a good error metric. So when we talk about good error metric, in case of regression tasks, it could be mean squared error. Sometimes people do use root of mean squared error, or you may use mean absolute error. And for classification, as you all know, that we have area under ROC curve or PRC curve, or you might just look at specificity, sensitivity, or you might just rely on the confusion matrix as well. So these are the good metrics. So good metrics lets you decide best way to optimize your problem. Then once we know that, once we know all these three, where else can be a scope for further improvement? The scope for further improvement can be always found in the parameters. So getting right parameters for the best result. So here when we are talking about parameters, we would specifically focus on hyperparameters, tuning the hyperparameters. Sometimes your data and algorithm all might be perfectly well aligned, but you might make a wrong choice of hyperparameters, and that could result into a poor ML model. So you have to always be very careful about what values you are tuning. So we might call this as tuning of hyperparameters. So this should be the next step in the sequentially process one, tuning of hyperparameters. We have already seen how the value of hyperparameters affects. For example, when we are trying KNN, the value of K has a lot of effect on overall performance of classifier. So can you guess what could be after this? So you have verified, you have good error metric, you have avoided this, you looked at learning curves, hyperparameters, and after that, can you guess what could be the next thing? After that, what you need to do is, see, even after getting all these values, you might not get a best ML model just by exploring one simple ML model. So what you need to do is you need to explore multiple solutions, and exploring multiple solution in the sense, you have to start with the simplest of simplest one, which you feel this can be classified as an ML problem. Then you will keep on increasing the complexity of your solution. I mean, you will try with a simple classification algorithm. For example, we are working on a classification task. So the simplest of classifier is 0R. You will see what is the performance on 0R. Then you will make it naive Bayes. Then you will go for decision trees. Then you will go for support vector machines. If support vector machines do not work, then you go for neural networks. So if I am not wrong, there was some session conducted for you based on neural networks, right? So there was a guest session on you for neural networks, right? Can you confirm that, please? Okay. So if it is on a neural network, since we have come to that point, I'll ask you a question. If I ask you a question, why should I use neural network? Why should I use neural network? So a point where your conventional classification algorithms like naive Bayes, decision trees, they do not work, but neural network works. What is that main reason why we go for neural networks? Can you guess? So that should be the conclusion of your sessions. You might have learned the maths, all that, but if you do not know when to use and why to use, it's no purpose. So can you guess why should I use neural network? Especially in the context of classification. Was it discussed? Was it discussed that why to use neural networks? See, whenever we talk about classification problems, what I'm saying, I'm doing that. You have some classification. For example, let us suppose I will plot it on this one. So let us suppose these are some data points. So this is one feature F1, and this is some feature F2, and we are predicting for label L. So I might have some data points. So these crosses are some kind of data points. So these are some of your data points, and the circles are other data points. So if I ask you, all are data points, but crosses are some data points and circles are some data points. There is a concept called as linearly separable. So do you think, can I separate these data points linearly? I mean, can I find any linear equation in between these two set of data points which separates these two points clearly? Can I have any such line here? Yes, I can have a line. For example, I can draw a line here, and drawing this line makes these points separable. This is called as linearly separable data points, right? Now assume that instead of this, I have a third dimension called as F2, F3. So three features. Then I have some more points, right? I'm looking at 3D points. So I'm looking at these dark points, right? So some kind of dark points. Now, when I consider this in a 3D dimensions, it can no longer be separated just by one linear equation, but I can now draw a linear plane which can separate them in a three-dimensional plane, right? So imagine it is like a 3D box where you can separate these points into dimensions. So as long as you can separate your data class points, as long as you can guess. So let me also tell you in some another way. So when you want to classify data by using logistic regression, we have an algorithm called logistic regression. So in case of logistic regression, classifying points means nothing but it is actually guessing this line which separates these two data points. This may be class 1 and this may be class 2. So classification is sometimes also a regression task. So classification is ability to identify between two classes. So if you can guess this separation line, you can always guess that, right? So when I have a classification task, some data points and the features might be in such a way that you no longer can separate these points linearly. For example, I'll tell you how it is done. For example, if I have these cross points in this way, and here I have these circles. So now do you think this is linearly separable? Maybe this is separable by a curve. So this is your classification boundary now. Is this a linear equation? No, it is a curve. So they are no longer linearly separable. And imagine if it is in a 3D box. For example, if I have a three-dimensional data field, let us suppose I am in a three-dimensional data field, right? So some points are at here, and some points are at upper here, and some points are here. So then these are separated by a curved surface, right? So some kind of curved surface. It now separates you this entire two classifications. So earlier it was just a plane. So one plane was separating these 2 points in a three-dimensional, but we could have this distribution of data points so that a plane cannot separate, but I need some curved surface, right? So when your data points are no longer linearly separable, you cannot use your conventional classification algorithms. For example, if you have this curved surface one, your decision trees or logistic regression algorithms will not work. So that's what I'm saying that. How do we come to that point? We always come to that point by exploring the simplest solutions and then we go to most complex one. So we might just start with 0, or we might find logistic regression, we will not get a solution. Then we will build another model by using another complex algorithms like decision trees. Decision trees will not work. But remember, whenever data is not linearly separable, a classification algorithm based on support vector machine works better. So it can give you some multi-dimensional separation as well. So even if support vector machines do not work, then neural networks. Neural networks are famous for their capability to classify data which is not linearly separable. So that's the reason why we always move to neural networks, and they are very complex when it comes to their architecture and all that. But surprisingly, their performance is far better than conventional classification algorithm when data is non-linearly separable. So the idea behind this is that whenever you want to improve the performance of model, the idea is that you should not conclude with building one model. Rather, you should build one simple ML model, keep on increasing the complexity and try multiple. So the intention here is to improve accuracy, try a multiple ML model. So model 1 by using one algorithm, model 2, model 3, model 4, and then you might decide that out of 4 models, one may be best. And when you're trying this model 1, 2, 3 to 4, so on to n, it should be always in a progression from simplest machine learning model to complex machine learning model, right? So this is another way to improve accuracy inside your machine learning model. So you might be using one algorithm, and that might not be the best or that might not be the worst. So you have to always try another ML model with increasing complexity so that you can explore multiple models and you will get a common solution. So what does it mean? Try multiple ML models. So when I say multiple ML models, it includes trying multiple algorithms. Okay. So let us suppose you have done all this, you have tried multiple ML models, but you do not find one ML model best. So one ML model might give you a good accuracy for class A, and for example, let me just a minute. So for example, let us suppose I have ML model M1 and I want to classify between class A, class B and class C. So I have M1 which gives me best value for classification with respect to class A. Then I have M2 which gives me a better classification ability for class B and C. But it is poor for A, and this M1 doesn't work well for B and C. So what solution you suggest in this case? So in this process of trying a multiple ML models, you found out that you after trying 10 ML models, you found out that M1 works best for classifying A, M2 works best for classifying B and C. So what you will do in this case? What is the options available with you? Can you guess? What would you do in general case? Forget about what we are learning about ML. So in general, if you have one ML model which works for A and another ML model which works for B and C, what should be an approach to proceed further? And assume that you will not get one single ML model which will perform better for A, B, C together. So this is the reality you have to accept. So what would you do in order to take this further? Would you conclude that there is no ML possible for this problem? Or would you somehow try to combine M1 and M2? What is, you should be in between these two options. What will you do? Ignore that this task is not possible in ML, or you will somehow find out a way to combine M1 and M2 so that I can take both of M1 and M2. Yes. So the answer is that what we do is, when even after trying multiple ML models, if we do not get a performance that one ML model can cater to our needs, what we do is we now go on combining ML models. So that is your next step. What is your next step? The next step is it is a two process. Right. So the next step is 2-1. So here you have two approaches to use this ML models. One is one is to combine all these ML models, putting different solution together. So here this includes averaging. So somehow what you are doing is you will try to build a hybrid ML model, wherein whenever an input is passed, you will first go through M1, then you will take out its prediction, and then you will go for M2. So somehow you will try to combine this M1 and M2 by using hybrid machine learning models. So hybrid is nothing but you will split your data set into maybe some part of features where you will first check for whether it belongs to A, and if ML1 doesn't give you proper performance, then you will go and check for performance whether the instance belongs to B or C or not. So somehow you will try to combine. So what you will try to do is we try to combine these solutions into multiple models, and we call this as averaging. So what we do is, in general, what we do is we average it based on some principles which we might have learned during bagging and boosting. So what we do is we average out performance of M1, M2, and we try to build one single ML model out of these two ML models. So the another way to do this is by we call it as something called as stacking. So stacking is something, let me tell you what exactly the difference between averaging and stacking. So I hope you have this M1 and M2, right? So when we build another model M, which combines M1 and M2, and if new data is passed to this, and if it predicts, then this is called averaging. So what we have done, we have somehow combined M1 and M2 into another model called as M, and this is giving you performance. So what is this? This is averaging. But instead of combining them, if I do something of this kind, so whenever I get a data, I use M1 and M2 as a process. So whatever the new instance I which you're passing to this one, it first goes through M1, then it goes to M2, and whatever the predictions I have from M1, whatever the prediction I have from M2, based on this two, then I take a common output prediction. This is called as stacking. What do you mean by stacking? In the stacking, so one model is stacked over others. So it is like a chaining of ML models. So your whatever instance which you're passing, this instance will effectively get evaluated through the models which are the part of that stacked ML model chain. So it goes to M1, then you get some prediction, and that goes to M2. Then whatever the prediction you get, then you get some common output. This is called as stacking. So there are two different methods. So these two different methods together people call it as hybrid machine learning models, building hybrid ML models. So it depends upon context to context, and currently how to build hybrid ML models is out of scope of syllabus, but it is something which is very widely used in industries, right? But as you all know that for academic purpose, we always there is a too much of pressure to keep syllabus simple so that students can pass and all that. Due to that, it is there. But actually speaking, this is something, a real world machine learning skill. Everyone needs to know how to build hybrid ML models, because rarely you will find a ML problem which can be just solved by one single algorithm, because real world tasks are very complex. Okay, I hope you understood what is averaging and stacking. Okay, so after averaging and stacking, can you tell me what exactly where can be even further scope? So we have seen all performance related regarding machine learning model. So if you even after combining these ML models, even after combining these two ML models, if you still do not get your expected improvement, should you stop at this point, or there are still any ways, still any scope, any somewhere in the corner where you can try to change and explore that? What is that aspect which we have left in this? So in this, from that understanding to till this point, there was one very important aspect which we have not yet touched upon, and which has a very high effect on ML performance. Recall 3 points which I told you, which has a high effect on ML models performance. Out of that, we have only explored two in this, whatever we have seen till now, but we have left one aspect. So next improvement process, they are related to that left out aspect. Can you guess? Can someone guess what is that left out aspect? I think hyperparameters we have seen, right? This is getting to right. This is related to hyperparameters, getting the parameters right. So there are three aspects for ML models performance. What was that? What are these three major affecting factors which we discussed? So for any ML model, these three will always have an effect. What are those? The one, as you said, is hyperparameters. Another one? choosing algorithm. And what is third, which I said that it has a lot of effect on ML models performance. Yeah, the third is the data, which we call as data sets, or we also call it attributes or features. So in whatever points which we have now explored, these all were related to algorithms and your hyperparameter spaces, parameters and hyperparameters. But none of this process was evaluating the richness of the data or some problems in the data which could affect the performance of ML algorithm, or which can help you in improving the performance of ML algorithm. So from remaining this, let me also explain you what are those two remaining things. So from all these remaining things, what are two more stepwise process which are remaining here? One is called as feature engineering. What I call it as feature engineering. So what does feature engineering stand for? And another one is we might call as what we call it as, sometimes let me call it as pruning, selection, filtering, or let me use some another word, pruning, selection, filtering, and of features. So these are next two processes where if we apply these, there could be increase in the improvement of machine learning. When we talk about feature engineering, see what exactly we are talking about when we talk feature engineering. See, it's see now it might look small, but currently considering the industry's expectations and what goes into ML industry right now, feature engineering is whole lot of different area. So it has become almost as complex as your data mining or some data analytics, like subfield in this in AI domain. So feature engineering nowadays is very powerful, and it is very much helpful for improving ML models. So a well done feature engineering can help you avoid all this. So if a properly done feature engineering with help of domain expertise, then it can avoid you all these issues. So feature engineering is nothing but it's a process. It's a process of transforming the features and predominantly generating new features. So when we talk about feature engineering, from the available data set, sometimes we might have a data set which might not have enough features. So just you have feature 1, feature 2, that's it. For example, if I give you a data set of student, like student roll number and date of birth, right? What else you can generate more? So if I just say student roll number and student date of birth, if I say date of birth, from date of birth, I can generate 3 new features. For example, the day of the month, which month it is, which year it is. So, and I can also generate age as an additional feature, right? Just from the date of birth column, I can generate multiple attributes. So this is called as generating new features. Sometimes when we have a data set might have so least number of features that your ML algorithms might fail to learn something from the data set. So in that case, with the help of domain expert and the domain under which this ML is being applied for example, maybe we are applying it for medical diagnosis, then the doctors or the experts in that, they are in a position to say that if you have this value, if you have a body mass index in this values, then it can be so and so condition, so and so. So there are a lot of something which only the domain expertise understands. Sometimes when we have existing features, they do not help. Sometimes generating new features or transforming the features into one data type format into another format might always help in improving the performance of ML models. So we maybe there is a concept called as entropy. So more the entropy in information, more learnability. If there is nothing to learn from data, then if there is no change in data, if there is no variability in data, what can algorithm learn? Right. So feature engineering is another process which relates to the data aspect of ML models, where when we studied that data also has an effect of ML models performance. So from that, these two features are related. Feature engineering, ability. So generating new features or transforming existing features into multiple another features could also result into improvement of ML models performance. And in the end, so out of available all the features, so it mainly revolves along selection of features. So I might have a data set which might have a 50 features in that. For example, recall our Veka series. We had a 30 features, but when I used 30 features, what was the performance? When was performance high? When I was using 30 features or when I was using 5 to 6 features? Can you reply in chat window? During that Veka series, we had 30 features. Which accuracy was better? When the features were high or when features were low? Yeah, when they were low. So you can understand that when you increase more number of features, there is always a likelihood of that the model complexity would be so high that we can always overfit or the algorithm just cannot learn from that. It could be too much chaos. So algorithms do not learn anything. So what we do is we have to properly select the features, and selecting features out of available 50 features might be something you can done by evaluating the features like correlation, information gain, and strength of field, confidence. There are a lot of measures. Plus you also need some help from domain expertise. So let us suppose you are trying to predict some medical test, and you are selecting the features just based on some correlation. Is it good? No. There are some features which a doctor feels you have to consider, which you might not be knowing because we are not from the medical science domain. So these two, which are related to data aspect, feature engineering and selection of features, these two have a lot of effect on the entire ML model's performance. And this any change in this two can also lead to much improvement in ML models overall accuracy and performance. But when we deal with feature engineering and selection, yes, there are ways of some algorithmic ways, some standard computational methods to give you guidance, but you need to always take into account the domain expertise. Without domain knowledge, ML doesn't make any sense, right? So if you say that there is an ML model which was designed by the best ML scientist in the world, and there is another ML model which was designed by average ML scientist, but with the help of medical expert, which one would you more trust? The one which was developed with the assistance of doctor, or one which was done alone entirely by ML engineer? What would you trust in general? Two, yes, right. Why? Because domain expert is one what it matters. So improvement in ML model, you can achieve it by using feature engineering or by applying some proper selection methods to filter out the features. And this too can be done computationally with help of domain experts. So this marks the areas or the process through which we can improve any ML model's performance. I hope now it is clear to you how you can do that one. So there is one last point. Can you guess what could be one last point? So you have done feature engineering, you have done feature selection and that. What else can improve? That is also related to data. Can you guess? The last and when which you is looking for more data. See, always when you have more data, it is always better. So an attempt to get more data can be always helpful. Okay. So I have a data set of 600 students. So I'm predicting, I'm doing and all that and this and that. But if I get 600 more data of students, it is always better for this machine learning. More the data, it is always better. Your ML models tries to learn newer patterns. So ensure that as a last resort, you can always go for looking out for more data. And sometimes data can also be synthetically generated. So when I say synthetically means, or it can be data generation as well. But this data generation has to be done very carefully. There are a lot of, it's in another domain where you can properly generate data generation without leading to any bias or variance. But yes, there are some models where whenever data is less, by employing some standard complex statistical computations, we can always generate additional data, which might not be something you will available in form data, but you can generate as long as you understand what is the context and you have a proper justification and rationale that your data generation is free from any bias in the sense, see, apart from computational algorithmic bias, we also have multiple biases as well. Okay. Okay. So I hope you understood how the process of improvement of machine learning works on that. So these three are especially related to data, and these are related to algorithms. Let me make this in some other color. So these are related to algorithms, and these are generally related to general behavior during ML model. Something designing ML model. This is algorithms, more related to algorithms and coding, and this is related to more towards data, understanding, touching upon the data aspect and trying to improve the ML model's performance. Okay, so have you understood this? Have you understood? Now I think you should have a broad picture of ML. So technically, when we learned this topic, now it is a point where now you can assume that you have almost understood 50% of ML concepts, which now you can help, which can help you build your own machine learning models as well. So now from now on, whenever you try to build any ML models, you should always look for all this process. Like, can I add more data? Where could I go wrong? How I am looking at error metrics? What is that? See, machine learning is not so simple process. Like many of the courses and many of the books and many of the advertisements which we get on site, that ML model is very data science in 20 days, ML in 20 days. I personally do not think that data science ML can be learned in 20-30 days. So it is something which you get by purely by practicing, by understanding, looking at various aspects. So not even an experienced ML engineer can design perfect ML model in one trial. So he too needs to spend a lot of time to bring a proper, well, trustable, credible ML model. Okay. Okay. So have you understood this process and implementations? I hope now it should make more sense to you. Like what exactly it takes to build a machine learning model. Okay, and how many of you have your ML based projects? Can I get that count? So many of you might have ML based projects, right? At least one or two. Who would say that artificial enabled, or you will say ML based this and so. I will not ask you about your project. Just I am asking. You can frankly respond. No issues. So how many of you have ML based projects? Or directly or indirectly they are working with some kind of ML related, data science related, or data mining related. Don't worry, I will not ask you about your project. Just tell me yes or no. Okay, and even others might be having some or something, or others might have explored some ML based projects. So remember, uh, when you are presenting your ML based projects, many of you, what you do is you always fix the algorithm. You say that, sir, we will do classification, and unfortunately some faculty, what they do is they insist on identify the algorithm. They say that system architecture, right, what algorithm you are using. So what you do is you will randomly go through some algorithms. You will write either k-means, or you will write neural network, or you will write something. But it is wrong approach. So any ML project, you cannot fix an algorithm and then you can do the project. That's a wrong approach. Why I am telling? So initially, earlier, when you appear for interviews, or when you go for any good companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or any good product based companies, or if you are being interviewed from ML position, ML engineer position, they look at your project reports, and you unknowingly, what you do, you will tell that, sir, my BE project is on ML, I am very good in ML and all that. So they will look at your architecture diagram, and the moment they find that you have fixed the algorithm, then they will doubt your ML capability. They will say, how can this guy can identify algorithm even before implementing project? Either you should be a super scientist, or you should be complete something, you might have bought the project. That's the idea which a evaluator will get. And remember, nowadays most of interviewers knowledge in ML model is increasing day by day. Earlier, 2 to 3 years before, not many in industry were very well versed with ML concepts, but now the picture is changing and scenarios changing. So more and more employers, they're all learning about ML. They start understanding about machine learning one. Okay, so you have to be very careful that if you have your ML model, ML based projects, somehow you include these processes, like what you have done in this, how you have decided hyperparameters, have you explored that, how you have applied the feature engineering, what was the learning curve when you implemented ML project. So this should come in project, right? Unfortunately, what department does, department gives you one template, the software, hardware, and something. For department's sake, it is fine. You want to score some marks in the project oral, that is fine. What department does, do it, submit it, throw it on their faces. But when you want to explore, or when you want to face the industry, that will not work. Let you be aware, like you have your own what do I say, you should have your own understanding. Okay, so why I'm saying is, now I think this is your almost last semester, right? Am I right? This is the last semester. So now on, your objectives, your focus should be not to convince your college or guide. Your focus, your thing should be like, how you gonna face the industries. How you, now the moment you enter into industries, people start asking, like some of your team lead might ask, what was your project? You say, sir, it is in ML, I did it in ML. Some students always say that, and I'm not hyperrating, but people, when you go into companies, you have to show how good you are. You have to portray yourself that you are better than other employees. That's what you have to do if you want a good increments, or if you want a good promotions on time. You have to show how you are better. So during this process, what we do is we say that my project was in ML, I did this, I do this. So there is very chance that you will face a guy who might be very well versed with ML concepts, who will cross question your projects. He will try to show that you are not best. So that time, all this process which you have done, this will help you portray that you are better in ML. And why I'm saying ML? Because for even like companies like Infosys, TCS, and all other service sector, if you are into a domain of cutting edge technologies, your survivability and your ability to fetch better packages on switch will be far higher. Right now there is much market in this ML domain, like data science and cloud and all that. Cloud is little bit saturated as of now, but ML is still nascent, and you have lot of opportunities to earn like anything in this one. So since we are at very end of this process of clearing the ML concepts and all that, that's why I'm telling to you. Okay. So I hope you value this information. If you do not want me to talk on such subject, let me know. Then we will just stick to this theory subject only. Okay. So I think I am done from my side for this part of lecture. And in next lecture, we will touch upon some different aspects of ML model. Maybe we'll start with biases, various types of bias. Okay. So I'm done from my side. Just mark your attendance. You should be free to leave. And if someone are still left with giving the feedback, make sure you give the feedback on Moodle. I think